In this module, we're going to look at MetaSkills. As you remember, the four desires of connection, expression, purpose, and growth are also associated with a metaskill, and these metaskills also bring us to a non-ordinary state of consciousness. We're going to be going through at a high level, looking at how these skills connect the desire to these states of consciousness. And first, we will explore connection. The desire is connection, but what does it actually mean, and what are we doing when we're connecting? What I found is that connection is all about perceiving. Perception is the skill, the meta skill of connection. So what do I mean by perception and perceiving? Through our senses, we are able to get information and be able to feel and experience the world around us, including others. And what I've found is where you bring your attention is what you feel connection to. So for example, what's the difference between a couple falling in love and a couple that's going through a breakup? I'll often ask people, what are they noticing? What are they paying attention to? And often at the beginning of relationships, we're noticing all the things that we love about that person. We're bringing our attention to their spirit and their uniqueness and their heart. And as our relationships go into problems, we start to then focus on all the things we don't like about them. So now the connection becomes to all these things that we don't like and don't enjoy and that we think should be different. Often our experience of that other person can change profoundly simply by changing what we're choosing to bring our attention to and what we're choosing to see. So in addition to our five senses, we also have inner senses. These are our thoughts, our emotions, our things like impulses and desires. They're also our sense of our bodies as they move through space, and things like pain, hunger, heartbeat, getting goosebumps, all of these body sensations. These are all inner navigations and inner senses that we may or may not be aware of. There's also the whole realm of subtle senses. Clairvoyance, the ability to see other realms, see energetically, see auras. Here, clairaudience is about the ability to hear, whether that's intuition from guides or from other beings in other realms. All of these subtle senses of being able to navigate energy, to be able to have that sixth sense or that sense of knowing or that gut feeling. And a lot of these are also all these different maps of meaning, which we'll look at for purpose. When combined, we're able then to use and navigate things like chakra systems and be able to bring our attention and get information in these more subtle realms, being able to navigate past lives. There is all sorts of ways and different maps of meaning that we can use to get information when we're aware of how to use our senses and how to bring and move our attention. When we expand our perception, we can feel more, our senses and experiences get richer, and we have access to a whole bunch of information paired with especially purpose around these maps of meaning. And two of the most common tools around connection are mindfulness and meditation. These allow us to go into beingness, into an expanded state. When we expand and deepen our perception, our sense of self and separateness drops away. We'll talk about more in the ecstatic states when we talk about those. But even in this sense of merging with the other and feeling really in union and connection with somebody, our own sense of separateness starts to drop away. We let go of boundaries and we have that sense of merging. Now, when we start to look at the desire of expression and its metaskill of perspective and its ultimate sort of consciousness state of uniqueness, this is all about you distinct from connection. This is you separate, and yet we never really are fully separate. But it's important, just as much as there's the desire to merge and belong, there's also the desire to feel ourselves, to feel you, your you-ness, and the ability to be sovereign and in your own autonomy. And what I've found is the meta skill of this is all about perspective. Perspective is, where are you looking from? So you are this unique point of consciousness, unlike any other. And when you really deeply know that and are able to navigate there, then there's no sense of identity being related to, oh, I have to do something or be something in order to be important or to have value. Your very existence becomes really powerful, a powerful knowing that who you are and in that unique point has a gift and has a perspective that is not in any way able to be met or experienced by anybody else. It is yours to offer the universe and offer consciousness. With the skill of perspective and deep expression, we get to slide our consciousness and be able to look from different perspectives without losing ourselves. We get to choose which facet that we want to experience the world through. So we can do this as parts of ourselves, like going into our little girl or a little boy and speaking from there. We can shift our perspective into a unique into our unique point of view about something, right? It gives us a sense of our soul self. We can bring ourselves to our higher self, to our wise self. And we also can even bring our perspective all the way up to that God self and being able to see something from the God perspective. There's a whole bunch of ways that we can start to play with our experience of where we're looking from and how we're experiencing ourselves. But it's very important to anchor in that sense of uniqueness in the midst of navigating that. Otherwise, we lose ourselves. And when all sense of self drops away again, when we are able to take the perspective back into the expanse, then of course we're back in connection. The third desire of purpose is all about sense making and about this ability for synergy. We come from these single points of consciousness now into relationship. Purpose gives us order and meaning. It's about how we make sense and interpret what we perceive. So on the X, on the model of the four forces, connection and purpose make up one leg of the X. So taking the expansive information and all the individual parts of points of consciousness, how then do these come together and to make patterns? How do we interpret all the information that we're seeing and put labels on it? Purpose is how we become more than ourselves. It allows us to see the bigger picture, to create structures and order. And sense making, for example, turns sounds into words and words into stories. It takes parts and turns it into a whole. It takes those individuals of expression and creates community and organizations. In purpose and sense making, we become a critical part of something greater than ourselves. And we also start to ask why and to choose intention. Why are we coming together? Categories, labels, beliefs, patterns, synchronicity, and maps of meaning. I mentioned that earlier. Maps of meaning are these ways that we sort, literally maps that we have, such as chakras or any model that we use. So if you're in a coaching program and you have your coaching model or the work that you do, you have your own framework that you use. I use the four forces as one of my maps of meaning. All of these maps of meaning, it could be even somebody who is a scientist or somebody who is a artist. Everybody's going to have their sets of maps that they're then looking at things. And it's also very important to look at this as a belief structure. Our beliefs are the way that we're making sense, language and words and how we're interpreting those, storytelling. All of this is about purpose and pattern and putting these individual pieces together so that there's a greater good and a greater whole. With sense making and deep purpose, these individual parts come together in relationship and something is created that's greater than the parts. There's synergy. It's also about complexity in the systems and how life is getting more and more complex. Cells become multi-celled organisms and organisms turned into higher and higher forms of mammals and humans. there is an evolutionary process around this. And ultimately, purpose is around this underlying matrix and blueprint of life. Finally, let's look at growth and the meta-skill of life force and the flow state of emergence. Growth and life force emergence is all about progress, about movement, about something new. And if we remember, the original desire of growth is the desire for tomorrow to be better than today. But at the heart of that is life force. It's the meta skill of growth. And life force is the foundation, it's the core of how we feel desire and move in the world. It's how we experience pleasure and our capacity for pleasure. It's all about creativity and newness and about power. When you put expression and life force together, you end up with the ability to have more impact in the world. And life force is the battery aspect of that. It's the fuel. It's what wants to happen, and it is what moves us. Life force animates everything. It's the fuel for life, power, and creation. And it wants us on the unknown, on that edge of the unknown. Purpose, on the other hand, and wants structure and order and labeling and making sense. Life force wants us to break out of that and wants to create something completely unknown and new. When we're actually learning to navigate it as a meta skill, we're actually then able to not only impact our desire and our power, we also become more charismatic. We have a bigger radiance and a bigger impact just by being the tuning fork that has a stronger vibration. We're also able to manifest and make money in more capacity. And there's a way of that the momentum from life force allows life to meet us and to create more than by ourselves again. And from the deepest access of life force, we have Kundalini awakenings, peak performance, and these leaps of emergence where something new, completely evolutionary and novel emerges. So when you put the four of these together, it sounds like a lot, but the four of these together are the non-ordinary stance. It's the way of being in the world, of being able to have these integrate. But it's also really important to understand them separately. And it does take practice to then sort of pat your head, rub your tummy, and be able to use them at the same time. But here's an example of how they work in harmony with each other also. Intuition is using as intuition uses actually all the meta skills, even though primarily it's thought of as a connection skill, the ability to perceive energy fields. When we look at that though, all of the four meta skills then come together to be able to give us more accurate information around intuition. So for example, perception, what are you looking at? Will give you different information. Where are you looking from? Are you looking from the higher soul level, or are you looking at the human level? Are you looking at it from your little girl or boy? Will give you different information depending on which lens you're looking through and which facet, which role of yourself you're looking through. You as a mother are looking at something very differently than you as the wise soul looking at it. And sense making, again, what does it mean? How am I interpreting this? So just because I'm perceiving something, how am I interpreting that becomes a huge part of intuition and being able to make sense of the information and that we're accessing. And then it doesn't help at all to get this intuitive information if we don't understand what does it inform, what do you do with this? That's the growth and life force aspect of this. What does it then want to make happen? What wants to happen from that information? And how do we apply it and use it in our human everyday lives? So again, this can feel like a one-man band, and in this case, he's not good at playing well with others when you're a one-man band. But ideally, what we want to actually do is these skills, when we learn how to do them in ourselves, the goal is that then we can do these with others. And this is that analogy of going from orchestra to jazz improv, from this idea of a hierarchy with a set song and with a conductor, to more of a jazz improv and leaning into something greater that wants to happen than a set song that we already know. And the 4 different MetaSkills are all skills of this ability to be able to be in relationship with each other and with life, and be in coherence within ourselves, with each other, and with life. So, for example, perception, being able to sense and follow other musicians. We need to be able to feel in and be able to navigate and sense and follow. We need to know our own unique instrument perspective and what's moving in us, what's our solo that we're offering, what's our unique gift we're bringing, our perspective, our point of view. There's also the greater sense making, feeling rhythm, feeling the collective of the group, feeling coherence with the music itself, being in partnership with the music itself. What's the whole that you're sensing and feeling? And then finally, what does the music want? Where is this going? What wants to happen? And being able to lean into something emerging that's greater, to feel that flow state. And life force also gives that ability to be able to turn the volume up and down and have variety of whether it's passion or gentleness. Like, there's a whole realm, and we've just covered the surface of these, of all of these 4 meta skills, because there really is, each of these give us this this new control panel with levers and ability to move and experience reality and impact reality in a much wider way, with a much more control and much more variability.